to the top of this event, and what ended up happening for Orrin Beasley is it appears that Orrin Beasley, according to May reports from the quarterfinals, beat Christian Valenti, who was playing Mono Black Vampires, a matchup that Christian actually really liked, but apparently after about 10 rounds of Swiss, Christian just overextended and got knocked down by a Consume the Meek, even though he had some duresses that he could have used instead of overextending.
You know, it's not too terrible to overextend after you've cleared the way with a duress, but
before checking, if you got that duress handy.
If you got the duress handy, you might as well.
So in this game, Pat McGregor has out a a plated Geopede that is ready to really do a lot of damage. If there's no Doom Blade here from Orrin Beasley, it's going to be racking in +6 per land.
7. And, I mean, that's 19 points.
So the full top 8.
Yeah,
that wraps up game 1. Pat McGregor knocking out Orrin Beasley at the bright and bushy-eyed morning here for us. That's game 1 of this semifinals match. The rest of the top 8, Christian Valenti playing Mono Black Vampires, designed by Tom Ross, defeated by Orrin Beasley. Pat McGregor playing Boros, defeating Andrew Pekios, who was playing Rug. Conley Woods playing against Chris Van Meter in a 73-card mirror of Blue-Green Genesis Wave. Conley Woods advancing to the semifinals, and he is going to be playing against Landon Doty, who's playing Black-Red Vampires. Landon Doty defeated Darren Menard with Valakut in the quarterfinals last night. Okay, so right now we're going to be going into game 2, and you're seeing Orrin Beasley there, who's been playing Black-Blue Control. This is the only true control deck that's in the top 8.
Later on today, we're going to bring you guys some coverage of the Star City Games Legacy Open here in Kansas City. Last night I was around the hotel till the wee hours of the morning, and I was looking at a lot of extended tech, Legacy rather, and some of these decks are pretty exciting. I've seen a lot of Painter Servant shenanigans. Trinket Mage for Shield Sphere seemed like it was a pretty good play against Zoo last night when I saw it. Especially when you can then welder out your Shield Sphere for Grindstone and kill your opponent on the next turn. There are other decks that are, playing a long game, like playing a true control counterbalance top type deck with like a singleton Thopter Foundry and Sword alongside playset of Enlightened Tutors. They can also find key cards like, hey, a Moat. Now, I'm not sure how many cards can really beat a Moat, but it seems to me that Moat might be pretty well positioned.
Going full control. I paired with John Fennec in one round, and that was around the day we paired. That's how the
Orrin may not know how lucky he was. He made it here by the skin of his teeth. He played a very interesting match against Mono Green Eldrazi in the last round of Swiss last night, and his opponent seemed to fall apart. I think they really felt the pressure a lot, and Orrin was able to stay collected, and even in situations where he literally had no way to win, he just sat there and kept playing, and his opponent gave him the chances he needed. So he's stuck through it. He's probably feeling pretty lucky to have made it this far at this point. And
sometimes you just need to get
too.
those lucky breaks.
Now, this is kind of how we've been seeing things go throughout this tournament. We've been watching, like the blue X control deck, usually blue black or bug or rug, is playing against a hyper aggressive deck, and they've cheated to a certain extent, trying to not play as much creature, play almost exclusively cards that are good in control matchups. Like they can sideboard into some sort of animal that can actually fight the creature decks, but it's very difficult for these control decks to beat decks that are this aggressive. They've really slowed down too much and tried to play a long game.
When they're all just trying to fight a control war, these aggressive decks really get the opportunity to slip in and do some real damage.
I really like the reach of cards like Squadron Hawk.
Yeah.
Just having the option of adventuring gear on that seems so strong to me. Now, in the other top 4 match right now, we have Landon Doty playing against Conley Woods. Landon is slinging a black-red vampire deck, pretty standard build, and Conley has a blue-green Genesis Wave deck that happens to be playing 4 copies of Acidic Slime in the main. From everything we watched yesterday, those seemed like a great choice.
Yeah, the Acidic Slimes just change things around in so many ways. As you brought up, it really helps that 5 mana mark that you can easily get to on turn 3, either with a Lotus Cobra or with a Jiraga Tree Speaker, whereas a lot of these decks, they don't really have anything at that 5 mana mark, so that extra 1 mana is wasted.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to maximize your mana every turn when you're playing cards like Lotus Cobra, you really need like a balanced curve. You can't skip those spots.
Yeah, and the
hiccups actually hurt.
Yeah, and the thing that's exciting about his deck, to my mind, is with Spreading Seas, with Frost Titan, with Tectonic Edge, and then adding on top of that 4 copies of Acidic Slime. That's 16 cards that can really suppress a player's mana, particularly if they are a player that is running, the kinds of non-basics that a lot of people are playing right now.
I've seen a lot of decks stumble in not a lot of games. If decks are stumbling, I can't imagine playing a deck with Step Links and Goblin Guide could possibly be bad. He's got Rune Blasters now.
Pat McGregor's sideboard has 3 Goblin Rune Blasters, and it's possible that he also brought in a 3rd Cloth of the Hammer in this matchup. I know that I certainly would have, and potentially a Tectonic Edge. Probably some of the least exciting cards in his main deck for his Boros list for this matchup is probably his Spike Shot Elders.
I would agree with that.
So a pretty easy sideboard choice for him here is to drop 3 Spike Shot Elders and put in the 3 Goblin Rune Blasters, and then push something around to fit in a Koth and a Tectonic Edge. Now, here we see this opening moment where Appears that he is very wisely holding back on sacking that Marsh Flats for the next turn where he can do a lot more damage with it.
That Marsh Flats suddenly becomes a Flame Javelin if your opponent doesn't have a removal spell.
Now for Orrin's part, Orrin it was not particularly well set up to fight a creature fight in Game 1, but after sideboard he has access to 3 Vampire Nighthawk, 2 Skinrender, a Ratchet Bomb, 2 more Disfigures to bring himself up to 4 Disfigures. So he has a lot of weapons to bring in after the sideboard.
You'd be surprised how well Squadron Hawk does against all of those weapons. Squadron Hawks and 1 copy of Adventuring Gear. It's pretty rough.
And here is one of those sideboard cards, Vampire Nighthawk, which does a lot of work in this matchup. I mean,
yep.
it does a lot of work of soaking up a journey, but I mean, that journey is going to hit something. A Grave Titan, you know.
Yeah, I mean, hitting this Nighthawk here, though, is so clutch.
Right here, a land into a Skinrender would be an excellent set to go down into. And there it is, land into Skinrender. With only white mana available, the Goblin Rune Blaster that's currently in Orrin or Pat's hand is a little bit far from being too particularly useful. But there is a sort of body in mind that he's going to bring down. If Orrin has anything, I really feel like he's about to just go over the top.
Yeah, I mean, Orrin can just run away with this game.
Yeah.
Cards like Skinrender do that, you know?
It's true. I mean, Skinrender isn't Flame Tongue Kavu, but it's pretty close.
Yeah. In some ways, it's better. It's black. It's 3 toughness. Do you know how good 3 toughness is?
It's okay.
3 toughness is so much better than 2 toughness. Like, 3 toughness is way bigger of a difference in goodness than 4 power to 3 power. 3 toughness to 2 toughness.
One of the things that's actually really exciting on the table right now, that Jace can, of course, just keep brainstorming, but if he wants to, next turn he could pop up that Skinrender and drop it back down again. Okay. His hand is looked to me like it was a Jace, 2 land, and a spell. I couldn't quite make out what that was. He's thinking he's going to attack with that Skinrender, I think, and then bounce it and then play it again. Here we go.
Seems reasonable.
And there we go. Yeah, the question he's kind of asking himself is, does he take out the Mystic, which might be able to get another equipment into play through a counterspell, or does he get the Step Links, which can do more damage potentially? And I think at this point he's correct, very much so, to kill that Lynx, because the Mystic's done enough damage at this point that there aren't really many equipment left in the deck that you'd be afraid to see hit the table. The big one is already in play.
Yeah, I mean, Pat's just having some mana issues here. And, you know, these off-color, like, dual combinations in current standard, like, have these types of mana issues. You don't really get any duels to play with. You're just relying a lot on your fetch lands. And sometimes you get these awkward draws.
And, you know, it looks to me like he has at least 2 Goblin Guides in his hand right now, which would have loved to have seen play on turn 1 and turn 2. Now, Orrin is at 9 life, but even being at 9, I think that, like, if Pat McGregor happened to have 3 bolts in his hand, which he does not, I still think that this would be a game that would be well in Orrin's advantage.
Even if Pat had the 3 bolts?
Yeah, even so. Even so.
Well, then I mean it's just a matter of him drawing the mountain on one turn or not, right?
Right, but if he draws the mountain, it's still, because of that Jace, and because of like the fact that Orrin has counterspells. Orrin has flash freeze.
Orrin
like
Orrin does have flash freeze. I don't know how big of a fan I am of flash freeze in this matchup, though. It seems like if your opponent draws like a lot of the red cards are cards like Goblin Guide and Play a GFE. So like especially if you're on the draw, like the ship has probably already sailed.
But what is the one card that you really are afraid of?
Yeah.
Koth. Koth is one of the big cards you're really afraid of. Now you can potentially mana leak that card, but a mana leak might not catch it because you might be tapped out to deal with something else. A flash freeze can be used to stop a creature like a late time Goblin Guide. Can be used to stop a bolt where a mana leak wouldn't stop a bolt. Inquisition of Kozilek. Rune Blaster, Goblin Guide, Koth.
Yeah, he gets his choice. You can't take a Koth, but you can't cast a Koth, so.
Now what we're, I think he's really contemplating is with that Goblin Guide and versus that Koth, if he doesn't have any counter spells in hand, the Koth can't be cast, but yet. But if he doesn't have any counter magic in hand, like which is going to be more? He can't take the Koth, no. But
yeah.
which is going to be harder? Like if he has Goblin Guide plus a spell, for example, like if he draws some other spell, he can cast Goblin Guide and a spell at the same time, put pressure on the table, and then back it up with the Koth, or take the Goblin Rune Blaster, which won't be very scary until the second red hits. And he took the Goblin Guide. I think that that's a nod to the possibility of a double threat followed up by a Koth.
It's pretty good.
So he loses that creeping tar pit, but he isn't being double threaded. And then bounces the Skin Render, replays it. It looks like he actually has 3 land up there at the very top.
Yeah, this game's all but over at this point. I mean, I can't imagine somebody getting out of this spot. Rune Blaster's going to come down and deal with the land, but even after that, Orrin can still just replay his Skin Render if he wants to, and Pat's going to be at 4 life, so. Post-sideboard games where Orrin's on the play don't look too bad for the blue-black deck.
This way. This way? Blaster taker.
Another Rune Blaster hitting the table. He gets suited up. Comes in.
Coming in for 4 and threatening 6. What do you think of attacking the Jace there? I think at that low of a life, I would have gone for Orrin's head.
It's interesting. one way or the other. He may be thinking that if he plays the Koth, he's got the same clock. It says you can just draw lands, and letting your opponent brainstorm is perhaps better than giving yourself like a top deck out in the form of lightning bolt.
Right, but I mean the other part of it though is this, right? He tells Orrin Beasley, "I'm going to kill you. Would you like to block with your skin render?" And that can get that skin render off the table, so that skin render Jace isn't around anymore. And we get another brainstorm. That looks like a mana leak to me. Disfigure, perhaps? Is that what that is?
That is, in fact, a disfigure. Now we have to see if Pat decides that he's going to play around that disfigure or not. It's pretty easy to play around at this point.
Now that
Top 2 to equip the sword, and if he tries any shenanigans, you get the fetch land.
that sword is going to threaten to make that Rune Blaster just a ridiculous creature.
Oh, yeah.
To sacrifice or not to sacrifice? That is a...
I don't think you should sacrifice it.
Oh,
we
God.
know that it's just...
Even if we don't know. Even if we...
Yeah, I mean, even if you have no idea what's in Orrin's hand, it's just...
You're opening yourself up to something you don't have to open yourself up to. There you go.
There's also just more value in popping it on your own turn. Or popping it like when you need to.
I mean, the worst that's going to happen is you're going to draw a card that makes your creature bigger. Okay. So now he's got the sack land.
She plays the fetch lands.
Yep. Plays it. Gets a land. Equips the sword. And attacks, I would say, Orrin Beasley.
Yeah, I mean...
there's no reason not to go for the throat when you've got essentially...
Well, I mean, it's a lethal attack.
Yeah, it's a threat for lethal,
Good
right?
morning, Magic players. This is just a quick announcement to let you know that
Skin Render is jumping in the way of Rune Blaster
will be
right now.
closing in just 10 minutes. We will be starting at 9 o'clock. If you'd like to play in the draft open today, come up to the stage.
Here it comes. Big.
Yep.
And it's immune to a Jace bounce.
Interestingly enough, if Orrin still had a Screaming Tar Pit, he could just disfigure it, take the 8, go to 1, and then
Swing back for the
lethal.
win.
Yeah.
The thing that's actually pretty interesting here is that right now that creature is doing 8 and it can threaten for 10.
Yeah.
But he has a disfigure in his hand.
Which makes it not lethal.
Right. So what he can do is disfigure it, survive the swing, attack with the skin render, bounce the skin render, kill the Rune Blaster.
Yeah.
Now, of course,
have to,
remember there's going to be a wolf. And that wolf is going to be really significant.
It's true. Because, I mean, that wolf is a vicious threat.
It's true.
He's at 1.
There's a lot of draws he can have that make that wolf not so good, but,
That walks. Fetch. Add this figure.
Here we go.
Make it 8.
He's going to go to 1 life.
Yep.
We're going to see a wolf, a mill.
So in this position, Pat can draw a lot of cards to just win the game.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
He's a burrow stack.
Go ahead.
Okay. Lots of things here that could do great work. What's he got? I can't quite tell. I see a Jace in his hand, and I'm not sure what the other card is.
Is that a RTFC wolf token here that I see?
I think that is a Legion Events RTFC token. There we go. Seagate Oracle.
So if you know, RTFC stands for Read the Friendly card.
Right. I think he just picked up a disfigure.
If he drew a disfigure off the top, then that's pretty nice.
Now, unfortunately, he's all tapped out. So, a Journey to Nowhere on the Skin Render ends it.
If he's tapped out, I think he just drew a Room Blaster. I think that's it. Oh, no, that's not it.
Yeah, a Rune Blaster, Journey to Nowhere, a Goblin Guide, a Lightning Bolt.
Well, the Rune Blaster that he drew is not good enough because he has Seagate Oracle now.
This is true.
Both
okay,
creatures
good
will
point.
not
Good
have
point.
Pro green.
Yes, this is true. Both they'll not both be Pro blue. Here it comes. Busting up a blue source. He attacks with just the wolf.
Huh.
Seems like actually a really good attack to me.
I'm just interested in I mean, I thought this game was Orrin's really good portion of it. He had a Jason play for a long time.
Yeah, he still does. I mean, he still
cast
can
a
eat.
lot of skin renders.
Wow.
Wow.
No answers. They're good enough.
That was close. So Pat gets there. We have a red-white Burrow stack. Super aggressive. And it's into the finals.